Hi everyone, thank you for taking a moment to watch our training video on Parcc test security. Prior to getting into the security of Parcc assessments, I want to talk briefly about what to do should you encounter a student refusing to take the Parcc assessment, or if you're told in advance that a parent has requested the student not to take one of the Parcc assessments. Currently, all test administrators, school employees, what we are obligated to do and required to do is provide an opportunity for students to take the test. There is no opt-out for taking the test. So if you go to test, proctor the assessment, what we want you to do is to set the Chromebook in front of the student, or if you're in a computer lab, have the student sit in front of the desktop, provide them their login information, just like you would for everybody, and continue through your script. If a student, after you're done reading your script and students are in testing sessions, if you find a student in your classroom that is not testing, I want you to mark them down on the securities breach and testing irregularities page that is attached to the testing security email. So you'll be getting this email. It'll be more complete when you get it. But in here, there is a testing irregularity and security breach form. So if I click on that, you will fill out this form, and at the bottom you will write the description of the incident. So if Todd Stewart refused to take the assessment, you'll write Todd Stewart refused to take the assessment. On there, mark that you know that the parent confirmed the fact that the student was not taking the assessment. One thing that I do worry about is that students will come in after they hear that their friend's parent may have asked them not to take the assessment, that they just throw out there that they're not taking the assessment because their parent indicated that they're not supposed to, which may not actually be true. So if you have not had prior confirmation that a student is not supposed to take the assessment, a follow-up phone call home would be appropriate at that time, and then mark on there that you followed up and with the parent, and yes, indeed, or no, they should have taken the test. And that is how we are going to deal with students who are not taking the assessment. Now let me get into test security. The administration of the Parcc assessment is a secure testing event. Maintaining the security of the test materials before, during, and after the test administration is crucial to obtaining valid and reliable results. Students may not have access to secure test materials before testing, including printed student tickets and printed seal codes. Printed mathematic reference sheets and scratch paper must be new and unmarked for those math assessments. Please note that copies of the mathematics reference sheets are available online and may be provided to students for regular classroom use. These reference sheets for computer-based testing are provided within the TestNav system. Schools can make printed copies of these reference sheets available to students for computer-based testing if desired. In the event of testing irregularity or test security breach outside the ones that I previously already mentioned, school test coordinator or building test coordinator must make a copy of the security form to report the incident to myself. Before testing, all staff involved in the administration or handling of test materials of the Parcc assessment must sign the security agreement. I will show you what that agreement looks like towards the end of the video. Please fill out and provide a copy to your building test coordinator. And for the high school, the test coordinator for our Parcc and air assessments will be Stacy Ross. Secure materials include testing tickets and printed seal codes, mathematic reference sheets, and scratch paper written on by students. All this is required to be maintained in a log of the secure materials. School testing coordinators or school building test coordinators, I want you to refer to the attached document in your email called Parcc PBA Log of Secure Materials. We're going to use this instead of using the chain of custody form that Parcc references in order to track the materials that go back and forth between you and the testing administrators. Previously in the video for Parcc, we asked that test administrators print out seal codes and student tickets on Friday the 13th prior to our assessment starting, and that is incorrect. You should not do that. Please do not do that. You will actually be picking up let me say that again, your teaching administrators will be picking up seal codes and student tickets from the building test coordinator of the day of assessments. And there will be a tracking form. Again, that form is called the Parcc PBA Log of Secure Materials that building test coordinators or school testing coordinators will use. After the completion of the test administration and return of all testing materials, school test coordinators or building test coordinators, they need to sign the post-test certification form stating that all materials have been tracked using the Parcc PBA Log of Secure Materials, and we would like for you to hold all of these materials, store them in your building for up to 3 years as suggested by Parcc. And I will also show you where that form is on the email following the end of this video. Just a reminder, any action that compromises test security or school validity is prohibited. The following is a list of test security breaches that describe for electronic devices. So these are examples of test security breaches for electronic devices. Again, if something like this happens, you would need to write it down on your form. Using a cell phone or other prohibited handheld electronic devices. Using a computer, laptop, or tablet while secure test materials are still distributed or while students are testing. Examples of test security breaches regarding test supervision. An example of those would be explaining passages or test items to students, coaching students during testing, including giving students verbal or nonverbal cues, hints, suggestions, or paraphrasing or defining any part of the test. Engaging in activities that prevent proper student supervision at all times while secure test materials are still distributed or while students are testing, i.e. grading papers or reading a book, newspaper, or magazine. Leaving students unattended for any period of time while test materials are still distributed or while students are testing. Giving students more or less time than is allotted for the unit as outlined in the manual. Encouraging students to finish early. Allowing students to pass notes, talk, or cause disturbances while test materials are still distributed or while students are testing. Providing unauthorized persons with access to secure materials. Formally or informally scoring student responses to test items. Allowing a student to engage in any activities listed above that I have shared, and allowing students to test before or after your state's testing administration window. Examples of test security breaches of test materials. Leaving test materials unattended or failing to keep test materials secure at all times while secure test materials are still distributed or while students are testing. Viewing or permitting students to view test secure content at any time other than during testing. Reading or viewing passages or test items before, during, or after testing. Copying or reproducing any of the test materials. Altering or interfering with a student's response in any way. Making responses available to a student. Handling the test materials for a purpose other than test administration. Revealing or discussing passages or test items with anyone, including students, school staff, through verbal exchange, email, social media, or any other form of communication. Finally, removing test secure materials from the school's campus or removing them from locked storage for any purpose other than administering the test. The following list describes testing irregularities regarding the testing environment and testing procedures. These are intended as examples and are not a comprehensive list. Examples of testing irregularities: testing environment, losing a student ticket, loss of internet connection for computer-based testing, providing access to seal codes for computer-based testing ahead of time and before reading the appropriate direction in the script. Just one final reminder in regards to reporting security breaches and testing irregularities. All instances of security breaches and testing irregularities must be reported to school test coordinators or building test coordinators immediately. The form to report a testing irregularity or security breach must be completed within 2 school days of the incident. And again, all of those will be found on the email that I will be sending out. Paper-based, computer-based test materials. School test coordinators will be distributing test materials and collect materials from the test administrators each testing day. To maintain their security, test materials must not be stored in classrooms prior to or following the day administration. So that goes back to those seal codes and those test tickets that were previously told to print out. Is not what you're supposed to do. Your building test coordinators will provide those testing tickets and seal codes. School supplied materials that are allowable: blank scratch paper, being graph lined or unlined, is intended for use by students to take notes and work through items during the test. Test administrators must supply blank scratch paper for each student at the beginning of each unit, and additional pages may be provided during testing as needed. Calculators are allowable. We'll talk more about those in a second. Mathematic tools for grade 8 and all the high school courses. Computer devices, we're using Chromebooks and our computer labs, of course. Headphones, a timing device such as a clock or watch to keep track of time during testing. And finally, testing do not disturb signs. Please post these on the outside of your doors on the day of your testing. Let's talk a little bit about calculators and what's allowable. For grades 3 through 5, calculators are allowed for accommodation use only. Students with a calculator accommodation may only use a 4-function calculator with a square root and percentage function. For grades 6 and 7, students may use only 4-function calculators that also have the square root and percentage functions. For grade 8, students may use only scientific calculators. For high school students, they may only use a graphing calculator. And when I say high school, I'm talking about Algebra 1. So if you have an 8th grade student in Algebra 1, they would then again be able to use graphing calculators. Additionally, schools must adhere to the following additional guidelines regarding calculators. No calculators with computer algebra system features are allowed. No laptop, tablet, or phone-based calculators are allowed during Parcc. Students are not allowed to share calculators with one another during testing. Test administrators must confirm that the memory on all calculators has been cleared before and after testing sessions. Calculators with QWERTY keyboards are not permitted, and if a student brings a handheld calculator in, the test administrator must confirm the calculator meets Parcc requirements as we've previously defined. All of the grade appropriate calculators will be available through the TestNav platform. That means they will pop up on the system when they're allowed to use them. Students may also use handheld grade appropriate calculators if desired. If a student needs a calculator as part of the accommodation in a non-calculator section, the student will need to have a handheld calculator because an online calculator will not be available. If a student needs a specific calculator, the student may also bring his or her own, provided it is specified in his or her IEP or 504. Other math tools that are allowable. The following tool lists are meant as allowable tools for students who use them in daily instruction and may find them useful during administration. If the tools are provided to students during administration, it is recommended that the students have ample opportunity to practice with the Parcc practice tests or sample items using these tools. The first tool, geometry tools. Items such as tracing paper, reflection tools, straight edge, and compasses are allowable materials for grade 8 mathematics and geometry tests. These are not required tools, but can be made available to students if they use the tools regularly during instruction. Geometry tools are not allowed for grades 3 through 7 and Algebra 1 assessments. For computer-based assessments, required tools will be provided through the TestNav platforms such as rulers and protractors. The following are materials that are prohibited during all units of testing. Cell phones. Other tested-related personal electronic equipment such as iPods, personal document scanners, e-books, electronic pens, etc. Instructional aids related to the content being assessed. reference books, any resource such as books, posters, models, displays that define, explain, or illustrate terminology or concepts or otherwise provides unauthorized assistance during testing. Mathematical formulas and conversion tables other than the grade-specific Parcc-provided math reference sheets. Follow the general rule that if the item in question may help the student answer or find an answer, post or copy materials, it is not allowed in the testing environment. Prior to testing, test administrators should instruct students to place prohibited materials in their locker or book bags. If a student is found to have any prohibited materials in his or her possession upon arrival for testing, instruct the student to hand the materials to the test administrator. If the prohibited material is an electronic device, instruct the student to first turn off the device and then hand it to the test administrator. Prohibited classroom resources. Classroom resources such as books, models, displays, teaching aids may provide unauthorized assistance or explain, define, or illustrate concepts. The following list includes materials that must be covered or removed if they provide students with an advantage in answering questions. There may be other examples not included in this list that school personnel should consider when preparing rooms for testing. So here's the list. Posters, maps, charts, and displays that define, explain, or illustrate terms or concepts. Mathematical formulas or theorems. Graphic organizers, multiplication tables, 100s chart, word lists, definitions, writing formulas, or any manipulative not approved through the unique accommodation prior to testing. If a student is observed with any of the items listed previously, during testing or during breaks, the test administrator should collect the student's materials. The student will then be dismissed from the testing environment, and the test may be invalidated later by the state education agency. The school must report everything on their form of testing irregularity or security breach. If you have to dismiss a student for testing because of having one of these items, please be sure to exit them in the TestNav system prior to ending the testing opportunity. To maintain security in a computer-based testing environment, Parcc suggests the following ideal configurations for seating students. Seat students in every other seat, arrange monitors back-to-back, seat students back-to-back, seat students in a semicircle, or seat students in a widely spaced rows or in every other row. If any of those ideal appropriate setting configurations are not possible, please try to place physical and visual barriers between computers to prevent students from viewing other monitors. We're almost done. Unauthorized visitors. Visitors, including parents, guardians, school board members, researchers, reporters, non-testing students, and school staff unauthorized to serve as test administrators or proctors, are prohibited from entering the testing environment. Visits by state assessment officer monitors, LEA monitors, such as myself, and Parcc observers are allowed based on a state-specific policy, as long as these individuals are not disturbing testing the process. Technology coordinators are permitted to enter the testing environment, but nobody is allowed to take photos of the testing screens. Okay, at this point I want to go over that email again that has all the forms that you'll be receiving. Here's the PBA log of secure materials. This will be the log that our building test coordinators will be using to track all your materials. Here's the test security agreement made by Parcc. If you would please sign this and return it to your building test coordinator, that would be much appreciated. If you have a student who refuses to use a accommodation that's been provided, so for example, they have text-to-speech on the ELA portion of the test and they refuse to use it, you will need to fill out one of these student accommodation refusal forms and provide it to your building test coordinator. This post-certification form needs to be completed by the building test coordinator. This is telling us after the end of testing is all done and all materials are collected, you fill this out and you put it with all those materials and you sign off, and the principal signs off that everything has been collected and all known security breaches and testing irregularities have been reported. And finally, the actual testing irregularity and security breach form. Again, I showed this to you before, but you would fill out the top and you would put the description of the incident down here at the bottom and provide that to your building test coordinator. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to fill out the Google Doc that we have ongoing with questions and answers, or again, you're always welcome to contact myself or Kyle if you have any need. Thank you again for listening, and good luck.